I told them today, I said it's been heavy for so many people all week, and God has given us the privilege to minister. It is a privilege to minister to you.
For years, Steven Furtick built an empire that seemed immune to scandal. Critics came and went. Attendance grew. The brand expanded. But now the silence is louder than the sermons. A financial drop, an active investigation, questions about oversight, and no clear answers from the top. When transparency fades, trust follows. Subscribe to my YouTube channel for more videos like this, because this isn't just about money. It's about accountability and whether anyone is willing to demand it. In 2023, giving stood strong. Millions flowed in. The stage lights were bright. The worship tours sold out. The message was clear. Growth meant blessing. But within 12 months, the numbers shifted. A reported $17 million drop in regular giving. Staff pressure rising behind the scenes. Emergency appeals launched to close the gap. The public image stayed polished. The internal math told a different story. What changed? Was it the economy, leadership decisions, or something deeper that had been building for years? Because when cracks appear in institutions built on trust, they rarely start on the surface. And this may not be the beginning of the fall. It may be the moment people finally noticed. In 2006, Elevation Church began with just 14 people in a living room in Charlotte. No stadium lights, no global streams, just a small gathering with a big vision. Within a few years, campuses multiplied across North Carolina, then into other states, and even into Canada. At its height, the church operated around 20 campuses and employed more than 1,000 staff and volunteers. The music arm, Elevation Worship, exploded beyond church walls. Billions of streams, major Christian music awards, arena tours, songs sung worldwide. The worship brand became larger than most local churches could ever imagine. Furtick's profile rose with it. Best-selling books, national interviews, recognition from major media platforms, a carefully built image of vision, favor, and unstoppable momentum. Even controversies struggled to slow it down. A leaked memo about staged baptisms raised questions. Critics debated scripted services, yet attendance kept climbing. The brand only grew stronger. From the outside, it looked immune to collapse. But empires rarely fall at their peak. They crack first, quietly, while the spotlight is still shining. And the next cracks didn't show up on stage. They showed up in the ledger. The first visible crack was not attendance. It was money. In 2023, Elevation Church reported roughly $18 million in regular giving, a strong year by most standards. But by the end of the next year, that figure had dropped by more than $17 million. Not over a decade, not slowly, in a single year. To fill the gap, leadership launched a special year-end appeal. It raised about $10 million, enough to slow the bleeding, not enough to stop it. Expenses kept moving. Personnel costs alone climbed past $31 million, consuming more than a third of the budget. Central operations and ministry programs added tens of millions more. The scale that once fueled growth now demanded constant cash flow just to stay stable. Subscribe to my YouTube channel for more videos like this. At the same time, engagement began to slip. The church's podcast audience dropped by more than half in 1 year. Weekly streams fell from over 500,000 to roughly 264,000. Digital reach still looked impressive. Yet core listeners were quietly leaving. Here's where the numbers stopped lining up. Attendance stayed mostly flat, but reported decisions for Christ stayed exactly the same 2 years in a row. Over 21,000 each year, not one more, not one less. If growth was real, why did everything else slow down? And if the audience was shrinking, what else was being held together by appearances alone? Numbers told a story the sermons didn't. Weekly attendance hovered around 17,373 people in 2024. We're barely moving despite new campuses and outreach efforts. The church's digital presence was shrinking too. YouTube views remained high in total numbers, but the core audience, the loyal returning viewers, was declining sharply. Podcast streams fell by 51%, leaving a fraction of the weekly listeners from the year before. Meanwhile, the church continued reporting more than 21,000 decisions for Christ annually, 2 years in a row. Identical figures, If these were genuine, lasting conversions, why weren't new faces showing up? Why did physical attendance remain flat? The numbers hinted at a growing disconnect between claimed impact and actual engagement. This was not just a financial or numerical problem. It was a question of trust. People were being counted, but were they truly part of the community? And when the gap between reality and reports grows too wide, cracks begin to show in more visible ways. The first major personnel crisis struck shortly after, because behind the data, the human consequences were waiting to surface. Tim Summers, who led Elevation's next-gen ministry for over 8 years, suddenly stepped down in February 2025. The departure wasn't quiet or routine. Allegations emerged from his earlier work at Oaks Church in Texas between 2009 and 2013. Multiple former students came forward, describing inappropriate contact, text messages, and, in some accounts, physical misconduct. One former youth leader even admitted to misconduct, triggering further reports. Red Oak Police Chief Garland Wolf confirmed Summers is named in an active investigation. While no charges had been filed, law enforcement believes something occurred based on witness interviews. The church placed Summers on leave in January, then ended his employment in February. Church officials described it as mutual, offering little public detail. The silence from Steven Furtick and leadership left a vacuum. Questions about vetting, oversight, and accountability remained unanswered. Parents and congregants were left wondering if the very systems designed to protect minors had failed. The crisis wasn't limited to youth ministry. It rippled across governance, theology, and public trust. Mini cliffhanger. And while Elevation tried to contain the story internally, external scrutiny was about to shine a harsh light on leadership, doctrine, and the church's broader influence. The cracks extended beyond finances and personnel. They reached doctrine and leadership decisions. Thus, Steven Furtick had long looked up to T.D. Jakes as a mentor, consulting him before stepping on stage. But in 2024, Jakes faced his own legal and health controversies. A federal lawsuit alleged misuse of influence in deflecting abuse claims, and another accuser came forward with allegations dating back decades. Jakes filed a defamation lawsuit, yet headlines continued. Furtick, meanwhile, remained publicly silent. Critics also questioned Elevation's theology. A sermon suggested Jesus was not leaving his disciples, but changing forms. Echoing modalism, a doctrine rejected by mainstream Christianity. Marketing choices raised eyebrows as well. Digital invites for Easter services avoided traditional language like resurrection or blood of Jesus, apparently to not alienate outsiders. Even as Elevation Worship continued to dominate streaming charts, the church's internal decisions revealed tension between growth ambitions and theological clarity. The mini cliffhanger. And the strain didn't stop there. Structural changes were underway that would remove external oversight entirely, placing more power in the hands of a few, and leaving congregants with little transparency. In 2023, Elevation Church formally broke from the Southern Baptist Convention. That move removed external oversight. Governance now rested solely with a board of overseers, pastors from other large churches, while regular members had no say in leadership decisions or finances. Yet transparency around Steven Furtick's compensation remained opaque. Book royalties, housing allowances, and executive perks were undisclosed. Property records added questions. His $1.7 million mansion appeared under the name of the executive pastor, not Furtick. Bulk book purchases circulated internally, creating a closed financial loop that kept transactions out of public view. Meanwhile, the church's music arm, Elevation Worship, continued to thrive. Won over 2.3 billion streams and 161,000 concert tickets sold last year. But commercial success couldn't shield the main ministry from scrutiny. Without external checks, financial and leadership decisions carried unprecedented risk. The system that once allowed rapid growth now magnified the consequences of missteps. Oversight gaps left the church exposed. Mini cliffhanger. And history shows how megachurch empires often end when unchecked authority meets growing internal and external pressure. What comes next may depend entirely on whether anyone inside is willing to confront the cracks. Elevation Church is not alone. History offers warnings. Gateway Church, Hillsong Church, Mars Hill Church, all seemed unstoppable. All faced financial opacity, governance failures, and accountability gaps. And all ultimately faltered. The cracks at Elevation mirror these patterns: flat attendance, disengaged digital audiences, governance without oversight, financial ambiguity, staff scandals, doctrinal concerns. The same warning signs are flashing. The empire's public image is polished, but the foundations are shaky. The real question is not whether cracks are forming. It's whether anyone inside will admit how deep they go. Because the next move could determine if Elevation survives, transforms, or collapses entirely. And for those watching from the outside, one thing is certain. The future of American megachurches now depends less on celebrity pastors and more on accountability. Those who refuse to look away may shape the outcome, but those who stay silent risk watching history repeat itself. Subscribe to my YouTube channel for more videos like this, because this story is far from over, and the next chapter could arrive sooner than anyone expects.